Hello, Tom Barnett here again with another story behind the illustration. This one focusing on a particularly abstract development for us to describe, namely, how globalization is consolidating along new, more north-south, and thus more hemispheric lines. So the trick here was come up with a global image that suggested our five superpowers were all acting in a regionally integrating manner, and thus were competing somewhat to define globalization's next era. I know, right? That's a pretty weird package to seek in a single image. This is how we ended up with this one. It all started with a Sarah Nuttall conceptual drawing. Just her throwing out some spaghetti against the wall and seeing what would stick with her dad Jim and I. This was the original image she came up with, and it's very rubber bandy in form. Our five superpowers apparently trying to pull the big rubber band ball, which I think neatly signifies global connectivity, in their particular direction, where they want to see it go. When I first saw this, I liked the gist of it. Everybody fighting over the same package to which they were all uncomfortably bound, but doing so by heading in completely opposing directions. To me, it had sort of a Sisyphean quality to it. You know, the Greek mythology of the guy doomed by the gods to roll this giant boulder up a hill, only to see it fall back down every time he almost reached the top. Well, my five superpowers here are all trying to move this immense thing, this modern, globalized economy and power structure, in the direction to where they think is the correct sort of higher ground. This was Jim Nuttall's first version. He went with the rubber band ball image and kept the basic concept of five competitors, rather pointlessly trying to achieve some sort of escape velocity from their mutual interdependencies. Jim's second iteration that I turned in with the revised manuscript of the book in the fall of 2022 gave it a bit more dynamism in the implied movements. You get a lot of those squiggly lines suggesting, motion. That all got cleaned up in Jim's third iteration, which I was still liking. It just lacked a certain explicitness. I couldn't see the hemispheric integration so much. It was more like they're fighting over this thing, this single thing. But then something really cool happened when we put the image to our red team review, and we arguably had the biggest breakthrough of any of the illustrations within that, what I considered very worthy review process. Mirtha Dodens, one of our senior designers at Throughline, suggested we go for more obvious imagery with a globe in the middle. And then she said, let's keep the rubber band dynamics, but let's make those rubber bands correspond to the latitudinal and longitudinal lines on a marked, plotted globe, an idea I found infinitely clever. And that's how we got to this final image in the book, which kept the original conceptual of Sarah in mind, but truly elevated it in Jim's handiwork into a very cool and evocative image. We have our globe as globalization, pretty simple. We have our five superpowers implied. They're working hard to pull over in the direction of their control some hemispheric slice, north-south in orientation. It's tough sledding, but these superpowers are nonetheless determined to somehow overcome the effort of the others. Constricting, competitive, counterproductive, a whole lot of notions captured here in a very clever image that one could certainly tell AI how to execute, but which I don't think AI could ever come up with on its own. And that's something I really love about these illustrations. Despite them being such huge subjects and ideas, you can feel the humanity in the work, not just explicitly in the images of humans, or Uncle Sam, or a dragon or a tiger, grappling with these huge subjects, but likewise, you can sense our collective and collaborative imagining of what the book was trying to convey to the reader in this particular instance. And that's how, with a lot of discussion, we got to these kinds of what I consider very clever and gloriously evocative images. And that's the story behind this illustration. As always, we love it when people buy the book, when they recommend the book, when they praise the book online. I and my Throughline colleagues, we feel very passionate about this work. Please consider subscribing to my Substack newsletter. And see you next time, next illustration.